Hey everyone, so first and foremost, thank you so much for the support for my last video on Go Battle League. For the most part, the reception was really positive, but at the same time, there was a lot of questions on how to make this team work, or the team wasn't working for some people. So I wanted to make a follow-up video on kind of different strategies you can do when you encounter different teams. If you haven't seen my last video, I recommend you watch that first. I'll put the link in the description below. That video will also go over movesets and the more basic information. This video will build more upon that in strategy. All my matchups in this video are in the 2900 range for battle rating, so pretty much every opponent I went against was actually a very solid opponent, and these matches all happened after my last video, so a lot of my opponents actually knew kind of what I was running already in the general strategy, so I couldn't really surprise them with the double grass. I have a bunch of different scenarios here, so I'll talk through them all, but if you want to look at specific scenarios, look at the pinned comment below, and I'll mention which timestamps you should go to if you want to see specific matchups. So first and foremost, a lot of people are asking how do I beat fire types, and honestly, out of all my matches with this team so far, I've ran into three fire types, or three situations where there were fire types. Two were Alolan Marowak, and one was Fire Fang Mawile. I would say that no matter what, if a Fire Fang Mawile has shields and they start shielding everything, there's pretty much no way you can beat a Fire Fang Mawile, unless you somehow are able to land an Earthquake with Meganium on it. That being said, Alolan Marowak is much more doable, and so I've ran into Alolan Marowak twice. This is my second time going against one. You'll see right here. So, Alolan Marowak, I have two grass in the back, and so the main thing with Shift Tree is that even though it takes 0 effective damage from the Fire Spin, so Alolan Marowak, the Bone Club and Shadow Ball will be resisted. Shadow Ball will still do a decent amount of damage because Alolan Marowak is, because Shift Tree is fairly glassy. So you're gonna have to probably bait right here, and so that's what I do right there. I bait with Leaf Blade because the Foul Play would do quite a bit of damage, and then I was able to take out the Quagsire with the Leaf Blade. So not a super easy matchup, but it's definitely doable in some ways if you could land that Foul Play and you take out the Flyer early on. So this lineup right here is a double flyer strategy, and I'll say this, I don't think it's possible to beat this team, but I just want to show you kind of how I played it out. And so the reason why I switched to Shift Tree right here is because I want to kind of burn my opponent's shield right here, and so now they're shieldless and I have 2 shield advantage. I have my own Skarmory, and I know that I had to take out this Altaria. The problem right here is that no matter what, I'm going to lose switch advantage, especially my opponent's shield. And my opponent shielded twice right there. And my guess is this opponent probably knew my lineup, because usually you wouldn't shield a Skarmory both times with both of your shields just from a Shift Tree. But so, you know, there was some disadvantage of people knowing my team for sure, and you'll see that in some of these videos. But yeah, there's pretty much no way you could really win this one, because Azumarill is going to have a pretty solid matchup as well against Skarmory. If they had like a grass in the back, it might be possible, but this is just really hard to overcome. So yeah, double flyer. I've only seen it once too, so yeah, it might happen, but it's still a pretty rare line because it loses to a lot of the meta lines. So, but yeah, that's just one that I don't think you'll win. So, this one is when you have Registeel in the lead. And so, pretty much if you don't have a good leading matchup, you almost always want to switch Shift Tree. Because the main reason is if they have a flyer in the back and you switch in Meganium, you can't do anything against that flyer. They're going to farm you down. They're not going to have to shield anything. And then you're pretty much done. And so, when I switch Shift Tree into it, the main thought is if my opponent switch out Registeel, I still have Meganium in the back. Now, this is actually a good indication of how you could read players and what their rest of their lineups are, because these are blind matchups. If someone doesn't switch out Registeel against your Shift Tree, that means that things in the back are weak to grass. And so I shielded, or I switched in my Skarmory at one point because I figured if my opponent is more scared of my grass counters, then that means that my Shift Tree is going to be even more valuable in the back. So I switch out there, and I pretty much take out the Registeel with just my Skarmory at the end, and I predicted pretty right here. Even though, you know, Meganium would be weak to Skarmory as well, Shift Tree can take it out, and I had enough energy saved up as well. And so that's actually a good lesson in energy management to always try to keep track of how much energy you have on different mons when you switch it out. So yeah, so that's a good indication of kind of what they might have in the back. So this lineup going against Big B, definitely a really great player. And this is the typical meta line that House Dark used to get to rank 10. So definitely a very strong line. Toxicroak, Azumarill, and Registeel. And the reason why I switched in Shift Tree right here right away was because Shift Tree has a really bad matchup with Toxicroak. And so what I'm pretty much doing is ensuring that I get value out of the Shift Tree, and then I'm able to kind of, do some trip damage on the Toxicroak. And that way I'll save Meganium later. Because if I win a Meganium, I'm going to have a terrible matchup with this Toxicroak in the back. Also, Shift Tree tends to do much better with shields up against Registeel. So, versus Meganium, you can see can tank moves pretty well too. So I'm going to have to bait right here with Frenzy Plant, and I successfully bait. And then now I'm going to shield, and then I'm going to try to take out this Registeel with Earthquake. So this is a line where, even though it's like kind of a typical meta line, this lineup that I created works fairly well against it because you win the lead automatically. Toxicroak is actually pretty tough against my line if it's in the back because it does really well against Shift Tree, and it does pretty solid against Meganium as well, especially with shields down. But a lot of people that lead with that line, it's a little bit easier to deal with. All right, mirror matchups. So a lot of people talk about where they picked up this lineup and they watched the video, and so you're bound to run into other people that use it. So I actually ran into 2 players that are using the same exact lineup as me, and so I'm sure they probably realized it when they matched up with me as well. So here's the thing. My Skarmory actually does some of the best IVs, and that's because I made it back in the day when I didn't really realize what was good PvP IVs and stuff like that. And so my Skarmory actually has a pretty high attack. So in all likelihood, I'm going to win a lot of CMP scenarios. And my opponent doesn't shield right there. And so I'm going to shield this Shift Tree because now I know I can get to another Sky Attack, and it's going to force them to use a shield. But on top of that, I'm doing a bunch of damage with just the air slashes. And so I decided to switch straight into my Shift Tree because I don't want the opposing Shift Tree to farm too much energy off of my Shift Tree. So from here, I have a pretty solid lead at this point. I'm assuming they have Meganium in the back, and the Shift Tree with a shield does pretty well against Meganium, and then my opponent quits right there. So I was able to finish off with 3 Mons left and a shield against their one last Mon. So as you can see, there's ways you can play this mirror to high success. And this is my second time playing a mirror against Purple Kyogre. Great content creator, by the way, too. And so I knew that he's a good battler too, so this is going to be an interesting one. So seems like his Skarmory actually has a higher attack stat than mine, which kind of makes sense because if you look at his Skarmory, the health on his Skarmory was hitting the lower points faster when we're matching shields. So right here, what I'm going to do is shield and force him to double shield. What this does is now I'm going to whittle down his Skarmory, and again, you can see I got to move at the same time, but he has a higher CM attack, and he was able to get to it. And so I bring in my Shift Tree right here. He didn't have enough energy to get to another Sky Attack, and that was really important because I used my shield so that he had to use his Sky Attack to take out mine, right? And that means I was able to farm him down with a few Snarls, and now I'm way ahead on energy compared to him, right? And so I could take out the Shift Tree with probably just Snarls at this point. Oh, he actually ends up switching, so that's probably a smart idea on him because that way I can't farm him down anymore. And then I'm going to drop... I almost dropped another foul play, actually. It was close. Maybe I should have just gone for the Leaf Blade right there because I would have done at least something. But either way, I feel pretty comfortable at this point. What I'm going to do is farm a little bit more just so that I have a little bit more energy so I could get to beat this Shift Tree with a Frenzy Plant before he gets enough energy. So there, I was able to win that. So even though I lost the Skarmory lead, I was still able to come back from just getting energy advantage and also winning having a shield advantage. So another matchup that you'll likely see is a Haunter lead. And a lot of times with Haunters, it's a Haunter, Azumarill, and Registeel is pretty much the lineups I've seen. Haunter lead is actually one of my favorites because you swap straight into Shift Tree. And the Shift Tree, just even the Snarl damage, does a decent amount of damage against Haunter because it's weak to Dark type and it's just so glassy. And so a lot of players actually will switch in their Azumarill, which is interesting. But I've seen it quite a few times, and if they have Registeel in the back, I kind of get it because at the same time, you want the Registeel in the back to take out the Skarmory they saw, right? Azumarill might not have as reliable as a matchup right there, and my opponent tries to switch quickly to Haunter. The thing is, Shift Tree just generates energy so quickly that no matter what, it's really hard to overcome. At this point, my opponent's down by quite a bit, and I brought in my Skarmory, not because it has a good matchup against Registeel, but because I want to absorb that damage, and now it's going to go in with Meganium, but my opponent quits after that, realizing that was probably too late. So this is the other scenario where they have Haunter, Azumarill, and Registeel, but they switch in Registeel first, right? So I want to show you all the different potential matchups of what they'll do right here. And then right here, I'm going to go for a Leaf Blade bait, My opponent doesn't shield, actually, surprisingly. A lot of players actually tend to shield the second foul play. So at that point, I'm just going to go in for another bait. Either way, Leaf Blade is going to do quite a bit of damage at this range too. And then I'm going to shield again because now they're within... they're pretty much within KO range. And then I go in there, farm a little bit on the Registeel, which is very dangerous for my opponent because now I have quite a bit of energy. And then because of the dark subtype on Shift Tree, I knew that it was going to be resisted because I know that my opponent did not have enough to get to a Shadow Ball. Right here, I probably could have just done Leaf Blade because even though it's resisted, it does quite a bit of damage to Haunter, but I just wanted to be safe. Figured there's probably a Zoomer on the back, and there was. And then I'm going to bring in my Skarmory, absorb the energy from a Azumarill, and then now I'm going to bring in my Meganium. Meganium probably would still beat it even if it hit me with an Ice Beam, but I want to be safe right there. Yeah, my opponent quits right there, but that's how you play that matchup. Bastiodon. So that's an interesting one too. Bastiodon, a lot of people ask, what do you do with Bastiodon? It's a lot tankier than Registeel. Like you can see just the Smackdown's doing quite a bit of damage to my Shift Tree, unlike Lock-On does very little damage. So for Bastiodon, I always safe switch Shift Tree. Like I mentioned before, you always want to safe switch Shift Tree. Deoxys Defense, also a very strong Pokemon against my team too. So this actually puts me in a pretty tough spot. I'm going to have to just go in with Skarmory, even though it has a terrible matchup against Deoxys Defense. And right here, what I'm going to do is just farm him down and not shield. The main reason is because I'm already down a shield, and my opponent has 2 Mons left and 2 shields. And so I'm going to try to hit him with the Flash Cannon, and then right here, I go straight in with Meganium. And then Bastiodon is within knockout range from a Frenzy Plant. And then my opponent luckily has a Swampert in the back. So that's a pretty decent situation for me. If it was a Azumarill, it might have been a little trickier. But I'm going to shield right here, and then I'm going to go straight for the Frenzy Plant. And I know Bastiodon can't generate energy fast enough to get to another Flamethrower. And so that's how you take out that matchup. So definitely a tough one because both Deoxys Defense and Bastion are pretty solid against my team. Bastion is just so tanky, so it's kind of a tough one. So this one, again, another Bastion situation, but this is when they switch out, right? So when they switch out, you really want to try to win that switch priority. And I was pretty much assuming that they were going for Frenzy Plant at that point. And Shift Tree does quite a bit of damage even to Venusaur because... okay, I let that one go, which is interesting. So I thought I was going to win that one, but maybe I decided just to farm it down with Skarmory, and that's fine. And then I go quickly switch in with my Meganium, and then at this point, Meganium Mirror, it's going to be tricky because although I'm a shield up, I still deal with a full health Bastiodon, and my Skarmory is not going to do too much in that scenario. So I think what I'm going to try to do is whittle down this Meganium, and then I believe I don't shield. I don't shield... and I try to go in for a bait with Frenzy Plant. My opponent doesn't fall for the bait. So at this point, I quickly swap out. But I know it's a Flamethrower, so that's going to be not a great situation for me. But I need to shield it anyway. And then at this point, because my opponent didn't shield the Flash Cannon, did quite a bit of damage, and then they're going to be forced to shield the Sky Attack. And I know that Bastion's going to have to use a Flamethrower, and I was able to get to a Frenzy Plant on time. So definitely a close one, but I think this is another reason why I prefer Skarmory over Altaria. Altaria does very little damage to Bastiodon, and Bastiodon could take it out pretty quickly with just Smackdowns alone, versus Skarmory is only taking neutral damage from Smackdown, so it's not as bad. Okay, so Melmetal lead. Melmetal is tricky too because it has Superpower, and that's going to do super effective damage against Shift Tree. So what I do is I always shield the first attack no matter what. Even if it's not Superpower, they're probably going to throw a Superpower next. And that's what my opponent does. I'm going to throw a Leaf Blade now. Leaf Blades are going to do quite a bit of damage with that Superpower already queued up. And then I go in for a quick switch to my Skarmory. Even if it was Rock Slide, it's going to do very little damage because my opponent's already debuffed. What I noticed is I had pretty much a foul play ready on my Shift Tree, so I probably should have gone for that because that probably would have came close to one-shotting the Melmetal. But either way, I was able to absorb the damage from the Melmetal on my Skarmory, which is fine. And then now my opponent's forced to expend pretty much all their energy on a Hydro Pump. And now this is a pretty good situation. And my opponent actually brings in Deoxys Defense. I actually kind of prefer this for the most part because Deoxys Defense, the counter damage does quite a bit. It was actually Psycho Boost too, which is really good because it's resisted by Shift Tree. And then now I'm able to take out the Melmetal with Leaf Blade, and then I have Leaf Blade to take out this Deoxys defense. I knew it wasn't maybe not enough, but I was scared that he was going to drop a charge move. It doesn't matter, no matter what the Deoxys defense is going to throw at me, I'm going to be able to tank it with Meganium. So that's kind of how I deal with Melmetal. Again, safe switch, Shift Tree. Deoxys defense lead. This one's tricky too because Deoxys defense is really good against Skarmory, but it's also good against Shift Tree, so I'm switching into a kind of a bad situation. Shift Tree does have Foul Play to damage it, but at the same time, you're taking counter damage, and it's weak to fighting types, so that's not a great situation. So now I have a kind of a lower health Shift Tree against Registeel, but the good thing is, like I said before, Lock-On's not doing enough damage, so even if you come in, even if you have a half health Shift Tree against a Registeel, if you're shielding, it's not going to make really any difference anyway. So it's actually not the worst case scenario, and I'm going to farm a little bit extra and go for another Leaf Blade. So this will prepare me to have enough energy to deal with whatever comes in next, and then I'm going to go in with Foul Play against Meganium. This is pretty good because I have my own Meganium in the back, and that has a pretty solid matchup against the Deoxys defense. And then I go quickly in and switch into Meganium because I anticipate him switching in his Deoxys defense. And then at this point, I know that I pretty much won because once I take out this Deoxys defense, Skarmory is going to completely wall off Meganium. This is literally nothing that the opponent can do at that point. I even had enough energy for another Frenzy Plant, but yeah, so that was pretty much it for the match, and that's how I deal with Deoxys defense lead. So, some tougher leads as well. Electric leads. Galvantula, very tough, but not great against the grass. Well, most electrics pretty much aren't good against the grass. It does have a Bug Buzz move, and that's going to pretty much one-shot the grass. And so I was going for hopefully a bait, but my opponent doesn't fall for it. This is Marto, really great player, #1 actually in all the Sylph Arena. So I knew this was going to be a tough matchup. Goes for a Bug Buzz now, right? And then at this point, not a terrible situation just because all shields are down, but I quickly switch into my Skarmory. And the main reason is because I don't want that matchup against Galvantula. And so I know that he already has a solid matchup there, so I pretty much want to burn all the energy off of this Registeel and do a little bit of damage with Flash Cannon. That way I don't have to worry about the Galvantula in the back doing additional damage to it. And so I believe right now I go in with Shift Tree. I'm going to absorb the charge move damage. Not the worst case scenario. Now I have my Meganium, and Galvantula was really low on life, so I didn't have to drop any charge moves. Low health Registeel with no energy as well, and then now he has a Azumarill on the back, and with the energy lead, it's just not going to be good for this Azumarill. Can't even get to Ice Beam in time, and then I know that no matter what, I'm going to be able to take out this Registeel even if it drops a charge move on me. Wasn't able to either, and was able to wrap that one up. So that's how you beat Electric lead with Galvantula. Alolan Raichu can also be pretty common as well. So this is Charles Orr, very great player as well. Now this is actually really tough too because I counter swap with Shift Tree, does really good against Alolan Raichu. He counter swaps with Toxicroak, and so that's also a really good counter, and he doesn't shield, which means that we're on even shields, which is not great, but on top of that, I can't farm anything off his Toxicroak, right? And so that puts me in a really tough situation. And then he goes in with a Thunder Punch. I'm not going to shield it. What I should have done is just drop the Sky Attack I saw. So luckily he has a Zoomer on the back, Water type. If it was a Registeel, it might have been a little trickier, but I'm going to go straight in and try to farm him down right here. And then this is a pretty solid situation because Meganium's going to resist all the moves that this Alolan Raichu is going to throw at me, except for Psychic, but almost no one runs Psychic on their Alolan Raichu. They're most likely going to run Grass Knot with Electric move or Double Grass. I tried to go for a quick sack swap right there and catch the charge move damage, but I unfortunately wasn't able to. Totally fine though. No matter what he throws at me here, it's not going to be enough to take me out. It's Grass Knot, still resisted. Had a little lag there, but it's all good. Able to get the Frenzy Plant and can take out the Alolan Raichu. Those are different scenarios that you'll probably encounter in Go Battle League, and so I know that using my lineup since I first initially used it might be a little harder these days because so many people are using it, and because I put my video out, for people that are watching the video and want to copy that strategy, they have a guide on how to use it, but for people that are trying to counter my strategy, they also have a guide on how to beat it. So hopefully this video will allow you to have a little bit more success with this lineup if you choose to use it. I played this lineup over 100 times on Go Battle League, so my familiarity with different lineups are definitely a little bit more than most people. So that's why even though this might be a solid lineup, you definitely have to still know how to play the very different nuances of different matchups to be able to have success with it. So hopefully this is a good guide for you all, and thank you again for everyone that supported my last video and my channel. I'll definitely be making some more content related to the Toxic Cup for Silph Arena, as well as a new Go Battle League team that I've been using, mainly because everyone that sees my team with my name associated with it pretty much knows exactly what I'm running, so I want to switch it up a little bit too. If you like this video, feel free to give it a like and share, and subscribe for future content, and I'll see you all next time.